I just got home from going away this morning and I had such a fun time. But we were in the car for quite a long time, and when I'm in the car I tend to really just focus inwardly and think about a lot of things. I often do this when I go to bed at night too. I will just reminisce about the day or reminisce about things and situations in my life. And I guess you would say no matter what situation you go through, no matter what illness or what struggle, there's always a price to pay. And I want to share with you today a little bit. It's been a long time since I talked about the heavy price of anxiety. Now, I have told you all through my videos and my channel that I dealt with anxiety. I was born that way. I remember having my first panic attack at age 5, and I remember having panic attacks throughout my life. I went through long periods of time where I didn't have any anxiety or any panic attacks, only to find them come up and just full blown for a while. It's been a long time since I've had a panic attack. Now what happens is, for me, I would tend to have anxiety for quite a while, and if I keep in the anxiety state, eventually I will start getting panic attacks, which panic attacks lead to all kinds of physical things. Panic attacks are different for everyone. It's the shaking, it's the teeth chattering, it's your heart racing, it's the thought process in your mind that you're going to die, there's things going to happen to you. It's the negative feedback in your mind. It's just a lot of things. It's actual physical feelings that you get, but it's all stemmed from your mind and the thought process. Well, for me, I have learned through the years that when the anxiety starts to creep up, I can tell it. The nerves start twitching and I can tell that there's anxiety there. I learn to scale back, slow down, take a look at things in a different way, and I know I can stop them. And I can. I haven't had a panic attack in a long time. 2 years ago, I faced something very challenging in my life, and that was the death of both of my parents. Now, they died 7 weeks apart. Now, my mother was very ill for many years. In fact, she didn't even speak for over 10 years. But when my father passed away only 7 weeks later, and it was a sudden, he was not ill, that threw me into a world of anxiety. I wasn't ready for it. We're never ready for the death of a loved one, but yet somehow it hit me extremely hard. Recently, something happened in my life that hurt my feelings really bad. And while I was in the car and I was sitting there just looking outside and just enjoying the drive, I was thinking to myself, well, why does this hurt so bad? Why is my feelings hurt so bad in this situation? And then I realized that my feelings hurt so bad because, once again, I felt like I was misunderstood. So 2 years ago, I was going through crippling effects of anxiety. I placed my video every single day, and turning the camera on helped me for a moment forget about all of the internal situations that I was going through. But then when the camera was turned off, it was always back there. It took me two years to 2.5 years to heal from that. But there are triggers. And I realized 2 years ago what my triggers were with the death of my parents. And so I avoided them at all costs. I totally avoided them because crippling anxiety is crippling. And you would do anything in the world not to have that. It is one of the loneliest, crippling diseases out there because it isolates you from people in the outside world who have no idea what it's like to have anxiety. This video is not for everyone, and this video is not going to be one of those videos where everybody's going to understand it. Unless you deal with anxiety disorder, you will have no idea what I'm talking about, and you will never be able to comprehend or understand my situation or those like me. But what happened was, I was perceived wrongly. I was perceived differently because I wanted to disassociate myself with anything that would trigger my anxiety. And I did that. And slowly through the years, I healed. I healed of all of that. But yet there are still some triggers in my life that I know that if I would face and I would experience, I would go right back into that, like just like this. I would go right back into the anxiety and the panic disorder. And I want to make it clear to people that don't understand panic disorder is we don't try to be this way. We aren't trying to be hard-hearted or hard-headed or trying to be the type of people that we are rejecting others. We are trying to survive every single day. 2 years ago, when my panic attacks were really bad and my anxiety was really bad, it was a struggle daily and sometimes every hour to keep myself from being stuck in the bed and thinking that all these things were going to happen to me. I had to try to ignore all of the sensations in my body. I had to try to ignore all of the things that were happening in my life. And I totally closed myself out to the outside world that would trigger all of that. So in my videos, I shared with you a tranquil life, videos where I share with you the old ways, because that was my healing balm. That was what healed me. That's what gave me a sense of normalcy and being a human again. If I would have continued in this situation where I was keep being triggered and triggered and triggered, I would have got to the point where I would not have been able to function whatsoever. And that would have been devastating. But you see, anxiety disorder is a family disorder. It's not just a person disorder. Because a lot of times when people go through anxiety, they don't want to go away. They don't want to go to functions that are social functions. They don't want to do all of these things. They want to just have their peace and not experience anything of stimulation from the outside world. It's not because we are being proud for or boastful or too good for other people, or that we're trying to disassociate ourselves with other people, or it's not that we're trying to reject other people. We're just trying to survive. And I understand that's very hard for some people to comprehend. And then they decide that they are no longer going to try to show kindness, and they're just going to ignore someone. It's a little bit like when somebody is dealing with a death. Everybody deals with death differently. Some people will deal with a death where they go deep inside and they don't want to be around a lot of people. That's not because they are trying to reject those other people. That's simply because that is their coping mechanism. And after a while, people just forget about them and ignore them. They never send a nice card or a simple letter or just a nice little email saying, hey, I understand you're going through the grieving, or I understand you're going through anxiety disorder. I want you to know that I'm there for you. No, they tend to ignore us. And if you deal with anxiety disorder and you feel all of these feelings of rejection from other people, just know people just don't understand. People cannot comprehend unless they have dealt with it themselves. And so I sat back and I thought to myself, I should not have hurt feelings. People don't understand. People don't want to understand, or people don't want to be bothered with understanding. It's just simply, if you haven't done it or been through it, you just can't understand it. While loved ones who lived with us totally can understand the anxiety disorder, even them, they don't quite fully understand it. Well, just get over it. What's your problem? You're so dramatic. Those are things that people with anxiety disorder hear every day. Well, what's wrong with you? You're lazy. You're not trying hard enough. Just ignore it and it will go away. No, it doesn't always go away. And so what I learned is, through these years, I don't have anxiety disorder anymore. Woo! But yet, inside me, I try to prepare myself and keep myself blocked from the triggers that are coming my way. And I know what those triggers are. It used to be those triggers were making videos like this to all of you. Those would trigger me into an anxiety because I was talking about anxiety. It used to be the negative comments like, stop wearing that lipstick, or why do you look that way, and what's wrong with you? You're not this, you're not that, you should be this, you should be that. All of those things on YouTube would throw me into a panic disorder, and I'd be like, why don't people like me? That does not throw me in a panic disorder either. But I still have a hard time seeing photographs of my mom and my dad. I still have times I can't see the videos I did of my mom and my dad. I still can't sit and watch them. The sadness wells up in me. It's not because I'm not trying hard enough. It's not because I'm overly dramatic. It's not because I'm highly sensitive. It's because I was born with a panic disorder. That is not a cop-out. That is not an excuse, but that is something that I'm working with. We all have things in our lives that we're working on, every single one of us. Some of us, it's physical things that you can see. Some of us, it's things that you can't see. Because we all grieve differently, and because we all go through things differently, we should never put a Band-Aid on something and say, this is what you gotta do, and this is what you gotta do. We have to find and focus on our inside, what we can do to better our lives. And so, slowly through the years, my triggers are becoming less and less and less. And I'm becoming more and more and more freer. And I realize there's a world of people out there that typically just don't understand anxiety disorder. There are people who have anxiety disorder that they don't like to be in any social, they can't even leave their house. I never got to that point, but I could have got to that point many years ago. There are many of us who find out in our lives that there are different triggers, many different triggers. There are things that come up, and I have PTSD. I have that through a lot of years of my life, and all of a sudden I'll have flashbacks of things that happened in my life. But slowly, those are going away. And I have very little triggers anymore. And I'm very thankful because I walked through my steps that I knew I needed to do to heal myself and to become the best mother, wife, grandma that I could possibly be. And so if you know somebody who has anxiety disorders, just be gentle with them, not be pushy, not being vindictive, and surely don't ignore them. In your own little way, reach out to them with kindness of an email, just saying something nice to them without trying to condemn them. Or like say things like, oh, it's been a long time since I've seen you. Don't you like us anymore? Things like that do not do any good. They do not help anyone. And the person with anxiety disorder, it makes them feel even more guilty. In their time, they will come and they will help you. In their own time, they will be healed of it totally. But it takes baby steps. It takes small steps. And people with anxiety disorder are the #1 people that are the most caring people, the most beautiful people in the whole wide world, because they are so sensitive and so merciful and so loving towards others. I've seen that over and over again. Anxiety disorder is not a death sentence. Anxiety disorder does not mean you don't have a life. Anxiety disorder does not mean you don't have happiness and joy. Anxiety disorder means you take your life and you make it the best that you possibly can, and in the long run, you will be better because of it. Because there is no one that I know stronger than someone who suffers from panic and anxiety disorder, because it's a disorder that's all within here. And it's one of those disorders that you have to just gain strength and wisdom and learn how to cope and how to conquer and how to become the strongest and the best person that you possibly can be. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.